So I've been wanting to knit this sweater, the Alma sweater, for a few months now. I just haven't gotten myself to buy the yarn for it, but then I had an idea. I was like, why don't I just buy yarn blanks and dye the yarn myself? Because I guess I just like to make things a little bit harder for myself. So the original pattern uses yarn held double, but in the Ravelry notes, I've been seeing a lot of people using this Malabrigo chunky yarn. So I bought a bunch of blank yarn that is a pretty similar weight to that yarn. It's a little bit different. This is an alpaca wool blend, where I think the Malabrigo yarn is just straight wool, and I honestly prefer alpaca a little better. So we're going to be knitting a custom sweater with some custom yarn. Let's start out with some project planning, and to do that we're going to be using the sponsor of this video, Milanote. I love Milanote so much. I talk about it all the time on the channel, so I'm really glad that they wanted to work with me on another video. Milanote is a creative's dream tool. Like, truly, when I say I use Milanote for everything, like, I use it for everything. I use it to mood board seasons. I use it as a yarn and fabric library, which is honestly probably one of my favorite ways to use Milanote, is organizing all of my yarn into one board. And I think it helps me from buying excess yarn, because when I'm looking for yarn for a new project, I can just look at the board and see everything that I already have. I also have a board that I use as a landing page for all of the resources and tutorials that I have gathered over multiple platforms. So no more searching Instagram and TikTok for a video that you liked 10 months ago because you want to use a certain technique again. They're all in my Milanote board now. And also it makes it easy if people are asking me like, what video tutorial did you use for that? I can just go to the board to find the link so I can send it directly to whoever's asking. And my favorite feature from Milanote, hands down, is the clipper tool. I honestly wish I knew about it sooner, because it makes researching and gathering inspo for projects so seamless and easy. You can gather images, links, videos without ever leaving the actual tab that you're in. You just click the clipper tool and save it to whatever board that you're wanting to put it in. It's also just nice to have that, like, if you're browsing the internet, not specifically looking for inspo, but if you come across something really quick that you just want to save for later. I love just saving it to a Milanote board and then revisiting later and thinking like, oh wow, like I forgot that I saved that. Let me kind of organize this later. That's like the main way that I use the clipper tool. Milanote is perfect for creatives, whether you're a filmmaker, interior designer, writer, artist. They have pre-made templates that you can use, or you can build your own from scratch using your personal workflow. It's designed to help you organize your work. And like I said, I don't only use Milanote for my creative endeavors. I'm actually using it to plan a trip right now. So I've been saving places to stay, things to do in the cities that I want to go to. So when I get to those actual cities, I'm not just like twiddling my thumbs trying to do research on what I want to do. I have it all in this Milanote board. You can also share your work with your team or a friend. For example, my friend Hannah and I are determined to make these Bagu bowler bag dupes. So we've been adding links to patterns, fabrics, and also like other little Notion things and just general inspo for that project as well. I will be talking about Milanote a little bit more throughout this video to show you how I actually plan the project as we go, but Milanote is available for free with no time limit, so sign up for your free Milanote account today using the link in the description or the QR code on the screen. So obviously our first step is to dye the yarn. I bought this yarn from Nomad and I bought 10 of them, but a lot of people on the Ravelry notes have been saying they only needed 8 or so skeins for like a size 2, which I think is the size that I'm going to knit this in. So the dyes that I'm going to be using today are acid dyes, and a big thing with dyeing is that the pigment that you see in the powder form is not exactly what the dye is going to be. And I haven't mixed all of my dye stock solutions yet, so what I did, I took the images from the company's websites and then I used the clipper tool to kind of make little swatches. So I kind of have a reference board of all of the colors that I do have, because you can't really tell in powder form what they're actually going to look like. And I also separated them into brands, so I have Dharma dyes and Jacquard dyes. And I've really been going back and forth on the color that I want to make this sweater. My top contenders right now are this red color, this pistachio green color, and then this periwinkle color. But I will say I've already dyed with the pistachio color and I cannot stop thinking about this yarn. I think it's so pretty, and I'm trying to picture it as like the cables of the sweater. I can see it being really pretty in this light green color. And since I've already dyed with this yarn, I kind of know what to expect as far as the pigment goes. So since I'm dyeing such a big quantity of yarn, I think it's good that I already have used it before. And I'm trying to build up this board with the swatches, but I'm also trying to have visual examples of the dyes actually on yarn so I can recreate it later on, especially when I start getting into like color theory and stuff and mixing colors, because I would hate to mix a color and it be beautiful and then I don't remember how I did it. Tragic, really. So I'm gonna start recording everything in Milanote, because honestly, a dyer's best friend is a notebook. There's a lot of little equations and stuff that I think is good to have a reference point on. Other than that, I think we should just start dyeing. Welcome to the dyeing studio. My biggest concern for this project right now is that the yarn's going to be uneven and then you're going to be able to see it as I knit the sweater. Obviously, if you've experienced knitting with different dye lots, you can tell in the end result which yarn you used for each section. So to avoid that, I think I'm going to do some sort of tonal yarn, and honestly, since I'm kind of basing the yarn vibe off of the Malabrigo Chunky. Malabrigo has like a classic tonal look to it. I feel like that's what makes it so popular. I think I'm gonna try to mimic that a little bit. I'm trying to determine how much yarn I can fit in the pot. I think I can fit 4 hanks and do it in 2, but I might have to do it in 3 batches. There's a few ways you can get that tonal effect. You can skip the pre-soak, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add the acid first, because if you know anything about acid dyes, that's when the reaction starts and like the yarn actually holds onto the dye. So if you add the acid first, then immediately when you add the dye, it's gonna start striking. And it strikes unevenly instead of having it like adhere to it first and then adding the acid and have it like bind to the fibers. So I'm gonna add the acid first all at once. I'm gonna soak all of my yarn in the sink here with the citric acid. I'm gonna use citric acid today just because vinegar gets really smelly. I think it'll cohesively look better in a sweater versus like one solid color, a different dye lot of a different color, and then it looks like almost striping. So I think if it's like uneven throughout, it would be better. You can change the depth of shade of the yarn by basically adding less dye. Pretty self-explanatory there, but there are some equations to kind of adjust, like if you want a light yarn, dark yarn, really deep yarn. I just want to make sure everything is consistent and make sure that I'm copying my first dye bath for my second one. And as a dyer, you want to make sure that you're writing these things down. Obviously, I have a small workplace here, so it's nice that I can actually just like pull up Milanote on my phone and I have all of my dye equations and stuff that I'll need when I start mixing the dyes. I'm just gonna have this like up next to me while I work so I can reference it and also make sure that I'm writing down like everything that I'm doing as I go. It's nice to just have Milanote in my pocket. Like I said, we're starting out by soaking everything in citric acid. I was able to fit all of the yarn in the sink for the soak. I did accidentally forget to put zip ties on all of these, so I'm doing that here, but I pretty much just soaked everything for about 30 minutes. Then time to dye. Of course, we have to have some PPE, and then I'm trying to recreate this stock solution that I used for that last yarn. If you want to be super accurate, you can do like weight-based measurements, but here I'm just using a teaspoon. And then I mix my dye powder with really hot water. Then you have to stir it up really good. Some people use those electric whisks, but I don't have one of those for dyeing yet. Maybe we'll invest in one soon. Then I'm just doing a little swatch on a paper towel, and then I put this image into my Milanote board to reference later. Then it's time to fill the dye pot with water. Okay, we've mixed our dye. Now it's time to put everything in. I was going back and forth on how many batches I wanted to do, but I feel like the best option is going to be 2, even if it's a little bit uneven, because if you want it to be even, you want enough water to flow around all of the yarn. But since I'm going for the tonal look, I think that makes sense to do that. At the same time, it's such a light color. I can always dye over it. That's why we're starting light. Again, I'm such a beginner still, so I think I just need to do it. Like, I'm so nervous, but like, that's stupid, like it's just yarn. So this is the total amount of dye that I'm going to use for both batches. I'm going to split that in half, and then we're going to do that amount in each dye bath, and then 4 skeins of yarn in each dye bath, which is going to be a lot, but I think it's going to be worth it. I guess the only other thing to do is to start, so. I don't know why I'm so nervous. Okay, I'm just going to do it. While we wait for that to heat up, which is going to take a long time, did you see how much liquid was in that pot? Like, it's going to take probably like an hour to get up to the temperature, and then I'm going to have to hold it at that temperature for like 20 to 40 minutes. But while we wait for that to heat up, I want to give 2 resources quick, because I know you guys are going to ask, and I feel like with dyeing, like there's a lot of unknowns and a lot of experimentation, which is like the fun part of it. But if you want some fundamentals, I have 2 great resources. The first one is this book, Dyeing to Spin and Knit. This book I actually checked out from the library on my iPad, which if you have Libby, or if you're a part of the library where you live, check your local branch if they have this book, because I always recommend, if you can find books like reference books, to check them out from the library first, and it's easy to do it on my iPad. But I was using that on my iPad for a while, and my mom actually bought me a copy of this book because this was one that I said that I would actually buy a hard copy of. So she gifted it to me for my birthday, and this has so much good information in it. And I'm talking about acid dyes specifically. I can do another video on natural dyeing, which I have a different book for, but for acid dyes like this book, I have a little library in Milano as well of books that I would recommend people on spinning and dyeing, and this is definitely in that board because it's one of my favorite books for dyeing. And then my second recommendation, which if you've started dipping your toe in dyeing at all, you probably know who Chemnitz is, but seriously, she has so much good information about dyeing on her channel. I'm always rewatching the same videos, so I actually do put those in Milano as well. I have a whole board of like dyeing tutorials, and like 90% of the tutorials on there are Chemnitz. She just has been doing this for so long, and she does crazy experiments all the time, and I think she is like the most amazing resource for dyeing. So shout out to Rebecca, she's amazing. She really does like everything. But I just want anyone to not feel afraid to try. It's so much fun. It's really so much fun, and if you have any questions, leave a comment or send me a DM. I'm still just scratching the surface of knowledge, but I feel like I want other people to try it out, so I can do a whole dyeing video in depth at some point. If you guys want that, let me know. Okay, let's wait for my yarn. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. It actually looks good. I think it's gonna be okay. Having a little bit of a freak out right now because so the first one I was trying to do like the tonal yarn or whatever, but it ended up dyeing like pretty evenly, so I was like, okay, cool, I'm just gonna recreate that. It's also hard to tell while it's still wet, but there might be like a little bit of tonal variation. But this one I feel like I was a little bit careless with, and I just threw everything in, and like there's definitely like tonal spots where there's spots that like really held onto the color, which made less dye available for other parts, which is kind of the goal, right? But it was like very concentrated in one area, so I just kind of panicked and like added a little bit more dye to even it out, which I think will be fine. I just need to like plan out how I use the skein, using like a very tonal one and then like a not so tonal one, switch them off, and I'll like label each dye bath. Will be fine. But like as you can see, like here, can you see that? There's a little bit of a dark green spot, but everything from the previous dye bath is hanging up in the shower right now. For some reason, my camera just doesn't really pick up the brightness of this color, but this is the first dye lot. I'm just letting this drip dry tonight onto this towel, and hopefully it'll be ready to wind up tomorrow, but it'll probably take like half the day tomorrow to dry as well, especially if I have like all of them hung up at the same time. A lot of emotions today, so I'm just gonna see you guys tomorrow. It's the next day. We have all of our yarn dyed. It's still just like barely wet, so I can't use it yet. I really do like the green, but like I was saying, the batches were pretty different as far as like the tonal aspect of it. Like this one's a lot more uneven than this one, and I don't know why. I'm just like looking at it as if it was a mistake, but like that's what I wanted, so I don't know. I feel like I'm just trying to decide if I'm happy with it or not, but I think I just need to see it knit up. I have them labeled as like the separate dye batches, so I think I can do like one like more even skein and then one more tonal skein, kind of have them scattered throughout the project. I feel like that will make it look the most cohesive. It's kind of crazy, like making your own clothes, you have so much control over how the garment's gonna turn out. I actually did knit 2 gauge swatches in just like the bare yarn. I am a pretty loose knitter, and I know that because every time I knit a gauge swatch, I usually have to size down my needles. So I think the pattern calls for US 11 needles, and then I knit a swatch in a 10.5, and I just knit another one in a size 10 needle. But loving this cable design, it's so pretty. And also these blocking mats, I bought them from Daiso. I think like all of these were $5. It came in like a set, so if you're looking for blocking mats, this is just like a play mat. It's nice because they're small, so you can like connect them, but if you only need like a few at a time, if you're going somewhere or you need to like bring some somewhere, it doesn't take up that much space, you know. Doing the gauge swatch is my first time reading a cable chart like that, so a little bit challenging. Anyways, I will see you when we start knitting. Okay, I feel like it's been a little bit since I updated you guys last, but I have this much done. It's been like a day or two, but I really wanted to finish this back part, and then I actually did both of the front shoulders as well. So now I need to connect them at the neck, knit down. And then I'm assuming I'll be knitting in the round at some point, but honestly, I think the variegation's looking good. I will say, if it was not like a textured knit, I might not have liked it as much, like if it was just stock knit, but I feel like the cables pulls out a lot of depth and definition anyways. So as far as color management, at first I was like trying to knit alternating with one skein that's a little bit more even, one that's a little bit more tonal. I feel like that looked good. Today, I think my goal is to finish this front part after I do the neck, and now that I'm a little bit more used to the actual cable pattern, since it's been repeated like several times, I'm getting used to what comes after what. I think I can knit this a little bit faster. Also, this yarn is so chunky, so that's why I feel like it's also knitting up pretty quickly. Those are my updates for you guys. Okay, I went to my friend's house last night and we just hung out, watched TV, and I got a decent amount of knitting done. I have now connected the body and you can now see more of that variegation. I'm just obsessed with the cabling. It's so plush. This is definitely going to be one of my like chunky warm sweaters for winter. I do have like a 10-hour car ride, so I think I can get a decent amount done. Last time we chatted was when I was about to go on my road trip, which I got a lot of knitting done, but I still feel like this like body part has just been taking forever. I actually did finish technically, but I think it's a little bit shorter than I want it to be. But the thing is, I'm a little bit worried about running out of yarn at this point because I still have 2 sleeves to knit, but I only have 3 skeins of yarn left. So I can always dye more yarn. I have 2 extra hanks, but I would like to not have to do that if possible. So this is all of the yarn that I have left. So that means I've already used 5 skeins for just the body part. But yeah, I really like it. I know it's gonna grow this way, so I'm hoping it doesn't get like shorter. I'm just feeling like it needs to be like a little bit longer and flare out more, but I think I can do that with blocking. I think officially what I'm gonna do is leave this on a cable and then come back to it if I do have extra yarn and not cast off yet. Okay, hi everyone. Sorry, I'm looking a little bit rough. My hair looks crazy and my shirt is all wrinkled, but it's okay. I did lock in last night and I knit a decent amount of this sleeve. It will be done today. I think I'm gonna really try to finish the sleeves today, which seems ambitious because it's already like 1 p.m. This is probably like 5 hours of knitting. I have a bit of a dilemma because I think I'm gonna run out of yarn. It might be like very, very, very close call. I think preemptively I'm just gonna dye the last 2 skeins of yarn just in case, because I have to let those dry, obviously, if I get to the point in the sweater where I need more yarn. It's not like, oh, now I need to dye yarn and then I have to wait for it to dry. So that's the plan. I'm gonna dye some more. And good thing I wrote everything down in Milanote because I wouldn't have remembered, because I've done a little bit of dyeing in between this project and I feel like everything gets so jumbled in my brain, so. I am so sick of knitting cables, but I just knit my last one. You guys don't even understand the feeling of knitting that last cable. Like, I really like it, don't get me wrong, but it was a lot. It was a lot of brain power, this project specifically. And since I didn't knit this one like 2 at a time sleeves, like the last sleeve felt like an eternity and I still haven't finished because I do have to do the neckline, but no more cabling. I can put my cable needle away. And let me show you how much yarn I had left. This was all that I had left, so thank God I dyed some yarn yesterday, so I was able to recreate it pretty accurately. Like, come on, that's a really good match, to be honest. I was a little bit worried that it wasn't going to be the same, but I think it looks really good. Tonight, I'm going to finish. I need to finish the neckline. I don't think it's going to take that long. I think just a switch up from doing cables will make a world of difference. Tomorrow, we'll check in with a finished sweater. We did it, and we did it in like 10 days, which is actually crazy. I don't think I've ever knit a sweater that fast, but I was so determined to finish this. The chunky yarn definitely helped, but at the same time, the cables were a lot of like mental effort, which made it not really a meditative knit, to be honest, but the result is so worth it. Very chunky. I would say it's probably like 825 grams of yarn, at least for what I used, not including like switching it. I think if I didn't like switch the yarns in and out, it would have been a little bit less. It is a very, very cozy sweater, and I just love merino alpaca blends, like one of my favorite blends of fiber. I feel like the color really doesn't come up on camera, at least on this camera. It doesn't really look as green as it does in real life. So this is the 9th skein, the final skein that I had to dye, and I honestly didn't really even use that much of it, but I'm so glad that I did that ahead of time, or else I would have had to wait like another day to finish the sweater to let the yarn dry before I started knitting with it. So thank God I wrote everything down in Mila Note, because I probably wouldn't have remembered like the exact dye recipe that I used. That's a really, really good match. I am still like really surprised at this, because I was kind of worried, since it was like a smaller batch, if I could recreate it again. And I really only used this yarn for the necklines. But yeah, now that I have everything written down in Mila Note, I can go back and reference it anytime if I want to recreate this sweater, which I definitely do want to at some point, but I think I need a little break from cables right now, because that last cable row was like bliss. Really, the only part of this sweater that's not cables is obviously the neckline. So every single row was counted for this sweater, which I've never done a sweater like that where you like really have to count every single row, but this one was very important to do so. So shout out to Mila Note for that. I honestly use it in my art and creative life, but in just like regular life in general, I think Mila Note is like such a great tool, and not even because they're sponsoring this video. Like, I've talked about them in videos that aren't sponsored by them, so if you want to check them out, link is in the description. I still can't believe this project only took like 10 days, but I was really speed knitting it because I wanted to get it done before my trip. I'm leaving to go to Asia for like 3 months, and I didn't want like a whip in the back of my head. Maybe I would have enjoyed the knitting process a little bit more if I did it a little slower and kind of took my time with it. I just didn't want any of my whips to feel abandoned back home. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like and make sure you subscribe if you haven't done that already. Leave a comment down below. Comment if you have any of your favorite cable knit sweaters. Share a pattern down below. Hopefully you're getting some fun winter knitting done. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.